Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, hi, my name is Steven and today I'm speaking on the subject of marijuana. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, marijuana is the most widely used illegal drug in the United States. And according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health in 2002, 95 million Americans over the age of 12 have tried marijuana at least once. Now, with such a large number of people that have tried marijuana, you would think that there would be nothing wrong to use it. Well, this is most definitely false. My main claim is that marijuana use has substantial negative effects. My first secondary claim is that marijuana poses a serious health concern, and my second supporting claim is that marijuana use harms society. But first, I'm going to talk about why marijuana poses such a serious health concern. The use of marijuana distorts perception and impairs thinking. These are only two of the short-term effects of marijuana. The Office of National Drug Control Policy reports of a study by the National Institute on Drug Abuse that found college students who use marijuana regularly had impaired skills in relating to attention, memory, and learning 24 hours after they last used the drug. Another study by the University of Iowa College of Medicine found that people who use marijuana frequently, which means 7 or more times weekly, showed deficits in mathematical skills, verbal expression, as well as impairments in memory retrieval. Consequently, marijuana can lead to psychological disorders. The National Institute on Drug Abuse claims that a number of studies have shown an association between chronic marijuana use and increased rates of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and schizophrenia. Confirming this claim, an article from the Yale University Office of Public Affairs cites a study by a number of Yale researchers that found the main ingredient in marijuana, tetrahydrocannabinol, aka THC, causes transient schizophrenia-like symptoms ranging from suspiciousness and delusions to impairments in memory and attention. To make matters worse, many studies point to marijuana as an addictive drug. The Office of National Drug Control Policy says that the 2002 National Survey on Drug Use and Health classified 4.3 million Americans as dependent on or abusive of marijuana. A different study in the same article found that users trying to quit marijuana often report irritability, anxiety, and difficulty sleeping. The article also says that adolescents are 3 times more likely than adults to become dependent on marijuana, and the earlier kids start using marijuana, the more likely they are to become dependent on this or other illegal drugs. Now, with these negative outcomes of marijuana in mind, it can be easy to see my second supporting claim, which is that marijuana use harms society. Marijuana affects driving skills, which can be a significant threat to the innocent public. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration found that marijuana is the second most frequently found substance in crash-involved drivers, and only a moderate amount is needed to cause impairment. The Office of National Drug Control Policy references a study of patients in a shock trauma unit who had been in collisions and revealed that 15% of those who had been driving a car or motorcycle were under the influence of marijuana, and another 17% had both THC and alcohol in their blood. Now, secondly, marijuana trafficking creates violence. It is a common belief that buying marijuana doesn't harm anyone. Well, this is again false. The Office of National Drug Control Policy says that California's illegal marijuana fields are controlled by employees of Mexican drug trafficking organizations, and during the growing season, the cartels smuggle hundreds of armed, undocumented Mexican nationals into the U.S. to work in the fields, and hunters, campers, and other recreation goers have been threatened at gunpoint or fired upon when they stumble upon into these fields. Most people also think that most of the marijuana they smoke is grown here in the U.S., and that's also false. The Office of National Drug Control Policy comments on this issue by saying that smuggled marijuana, whether it be brought in from Mexico, Latin America, or Canada, accounts for most of the marijuana available in the United States. I'm sure many of you have heard about these and other issues in Mexico regarding drug violence recently. And another case of heartbreaking marijuana-related incidents was posted in an article by Elisa Berger, a staff writer for the New York Post, where an 8-year-old boy was shot and killed outside his Brooklyn home after a drug dealer sold a dime bag of marijuana on another drug dealer's turf. And the last way that marijuana harms society is through its harmful smoke, which creates a health hazard for the public. The National Institute on Drug Abuse states that marijuana smoke contains 50 to 70% more carcinogenic hydrocarbons than does tobacco smoke. The article also says marijuana smokers can have many of the same respiratory problems as tobacco smokers, such as a daily cough, phlegm production, and more frequent acute chest illness and a heightened risk of lung disease. The Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment of the California Environmental Protection Agency added marijuana smoke to Proposition 65 on June 19, 2009. Now, what Proposition 65 is, it was a proposition enacted in November of 1986 and requires the Governor of California to publish at least annually a list of chemicals known to the state to cause cancer and that reproduce toxicity. In May 2009, the Carcinogen Identification Committee determined that marijuana smoke was clearly shown through scientifically valid testing to cause cancer. Concluding my presentation, I would like to reflect on some of the topics I have discussed. My main claim that marijuana use has substantial negative effects was supported by my first secondary claim that marijuana impairs thinking. It was supported by my first secondary claim that marijuana has substantial negative effects, by my first secondary claim that marijuana poses a serious health risk to its users. In doing so, marijuana distorts perception, it impairs thinking, leads to psychological disorders, and has addictive quantities. My second supporting claim that marijuana harms society was reasoned by the claims that marijuana influence can affect driving skills, marijuana trafficking creates violence, and marijuana smoke is harmful to others other than the first-hand smoker. I hope you see now that marijuana is not just the harmless drug that you all think it is. And, well, hope you bear in mind these effects in the future. Thank you.
All right, you clearly state what your proposition is. It's a claim of fact. The secondary claims are laid out pretty well, although it did get a little confusing because you had multiple minor claims under each of those points. At the end, when you're summarizing it, it's a little bit sharper, but during the presentation, there were a couple of times I thought, well, wait a second, I thought this was the second point, and the truth is it was like the second point on the second point, and so it maybe got a little bit overdone there. The evidence is consistently cited. You give good sources for all the information you're presenting. You've got a diversity of information, some good statistical information, a couple of quotes. The factual data in that last point about Proposition 65 and the smoke and marijuana being ruled a carcinogen, I thought that that was particularly appropriate in light of the fact that California makes marijuana available for medical uses but also classifies it as a carcinogen. It's an interesting combination of issues that you've got there. The citation of studies was pretty good. Sometimes the statistical information is a little vague. I thought the stuff on car accidents and stuff was the best place where you developed some statistical information on those points. The summary I thought was really solid because it does tell us how you put that information together in order to reach each of those claims that you're making. It felt a little bit rushed. I thought you had pretty good eye contact while you were speaking, and you did go a little over time, but not too bad. All right, thank you.